afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the announcement of the winners of the first BIMHarambee Student Competition. We are very excited to have this competition. We're very excited to have the participants and have a discussion about what we experienced, what we've learned, and what we are hoping to continue to learn. So with that, my name is Clay Davey. I am a postdoc associate at the University of Pretoria in South Africa. And I have a deep interest in the future of cities and technology and innovation in Africa. And I also lead the Hatfield Digital Twin City Initiative in the city of Pretoria with the leadership of the University of Pretoria. And with that, I would love to open the discussion today and introduce our two teams. So we have two very exciting winners, and the first team I'd like to call to the stage is the team in STP BIM, leader by Idris Tashout. Idris, could you please just introduce yourself, tell us who you are, where you're from, and one-liner about what excited you about the competition. Over to you, Idris. Well, let's move to the second team. Renee, welcome. Please introduce us to your team. Tell us where you're from, what you worked on, and a one-liner about what excited you about this competition. Go for it, Renee.
Hi, good day. Thank you so much. I'm Renee Kutzer, third-year architectural student at Tshwane University of Technology, Department of Architectural and Industrial Design. My team members are Rafenchi Matubani and Daniel Perrins, and obviously our lecturer Leon Pinar, who supported us all the way. Thank you for that, Leon. I'm honored to be here. Thank you on behalf of ourselves and the team members. And what excited us about the competition, well, BIM is still quite new to all of us. I'm super excited about the whole, everything I know about BIM so far. I'm really excited about that and learning more. And I think this was an opportunity to be thrown in there quite deep and swim your way out. And it was quite an awesome experience.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions to you to help our audience understand your journey, the experience you've had. And then after we've had our conversation, we'll also ask some questions to your tutor. And then we'll have a discussion about the big picture. And we'd love your comments about that as well as we discuss it with the judges and everyone involved. So Renee, for your interest, the judges are actually from the full spectrum of the built environment. We have people from government who looked at the work all the way to construction and community services and technical architects and engineers and facility managers. And I want to ask you, Renee, like when you started this journey, what is your experience like? What did you learn as you started attempting this competition and as you went through the process of figuring out what a BIM product is and the future of smart cities? Yeah, tell us about your experience.
Well, most of it is quite new. It's exciting to see how much information you can actually inject into a system and which can be reused afterwards or even during a building process or so. And it actually makes you think that the whole system can be used as part of a maintenance sort of a maintenance scenario as well on buildings and in the whole environment. It was, sorry, I'm thinking of as we go now.
Go for it.
It is quite interesting to see how in depth the information the information is that you can actually extract from the system. And yeah.
So let me help out a bit. So we've had the competition was continental, right? So you're representing one of about 40 teams who participated. And the competition asked, how can we take an as-built building or an existing building and digitize it and get it smart city ready? So looking back into the digitization of the building, how did you approach your project?
Well, initially we started off with drawings. We were in lockdown still at the time, so we worked on information that was sourced by our spider lecturer, like the plans and some photos and so. It was from there we broke the building up in 3 parts. We each one of our group members basically modeled a portion of the building or of the floor. And yes, so we broke it up that way because we were on different versions of Revit, and we couldn't all work on a cloud at the same time. So we broke it up in that way, and each of us worked on a portion. And after that, when we felt we had as much as we could do in the time we had, we just combined the whole project and into one Revit file, and then we converted it or exported it to a Tandem project where yes.
Yeah, and so if you looking back at the process, what was most interesting to you and what was very difficult to do? We would like to learn from your experience, so tell us what happened for you.
Well, the most interesting was the fact that there's so much information that you can put into one file, which can be used by or extracted by anyone. That was basically the most interesting thing. Most difficult was the fact that we were working on the different versions, which made it difficult to all work at the project at the same time and so on. So collaboration. We were working on a desire to learn and Zoom. So just keeping track of who's working on what, that was quite a challenge at times, but I think we managed quite well. It would have been awesome to be able to actually all work on the file at the same time and on the cloud. And so, yes, I think that's the.
Thank you. And well, so that was a question about the past and the experience you've had. But looking to the future, what do you think about doing this kind of work again? What did you learn from this experience that you'd like the audience to pick up from? And what do you think the future holds for us when we talk about BIM and education and these kinds of experiences?
Well, it's endless. I don't know where to begin. From my experience, I would say, once again, yes, all the information that you can actually use, you can actually connect it to automatic systems, which you can use in controlling the buildings. You can automatic systems where you can actually maybe forward information to quantity surveyors or to the contractors who are actually on site, who wants to be able to see information from there. And I also see it going in a direction of basically automatically controlling systems, communication systems between, how can I say, sorry.
Don't be nervous. We're a very friendly community.
Yes.
But think of the future. What would you like to see BIM become?
Automatic systems connected to, say, autonomous vehicles, maybe connecting to your main gate system, connecting to the different faculties in the department, connecting all of them together. And in a way, Yes, streamlining the whole built environment with data immediately being available from design process.
Thank
It
you.
is actually, so far I can never stop thinking about this.
What keeps your mind thinking about it all the time? What excites you?
Basically the automatic, how can I say, the amount of information which is automatically available. And it's, to me, it's basically, it's all about the amount of information that's available so easily by the push of a button, basically.
Thank you, Renee. And maybe Leon, I'm going to switch over a little bit and ask you, from your experience as an educator, what excited you about this competition? What did you learn? How did you experience your journey with your students?
Thanks, Khaled. Yeah, it was a very exciting journey. We always had, we have this in our curriculum from first year all the way to fourth year, and we've got 4 tiers at Tshwane University of Technology Department, Architecture and Industrial Design, basically integrated in our course, which is first year at basic level, second year at intermediate level, and third year at advanced level, and then we've got a fourth year level which is specialized. So that stream goes right through, and we also give both ecosystems, the Revit ecosystem and the ArchiCAD ecosystem available, so that the students can actually experience both BIM environments to explore. And with where our students for this competition is on the advanced level, so we wanted to introduce more specialized BIM things anyways in the curriculum this year and last year with our new recurriculation that happened 2 years ago. It takes some time to get things all in place, but I think it's a good match at this stage. And then that would also fit the bigger picture where we get to the fourth year level, and that looking at computational algorithms and Dynamo, Internet of Things, that's happening in the specialized levels. So yeah, that's basically on an academic side. It was great to see the students shape up and explore different ways of using different applications. Some groups use the ArchiCAD ecosystem, some a combination, some with Renee's group, which is really awesome that they try to use this version difference between them to actually get to the end result. So that really was awesome.
Leon, what did you notice, because the competition ran for about 3 months, and what did you notice in the production of the work? Is there something that you would like us to listen out for or pay attention to as we go into the future?
Yeah, to a certain degree, the competition, if it's in an academic environment, it's extremely difficult to introduce a competition mid-year or even in the design projects. Just to put this sort of clear, this is part of the computer application in architecture subject stream, not the design stream, which is their main major subject. So, well, one of them. And so that means prior planning, like right now for next year, would be better for curriculation, or not that curriculation, but for putting the projects into the particular sort of workload of the students. So that's maybe something that can be a bit preempted, maybe.
Thank you. And before I go to Idris, I just want to ask Leon, we're working towards smart cities in Africa. And how do you see competitions like this and the BIM education play into that space? How do you think we can get to smart African cities?
Very interesting question. Thanks. Yes, the DNA, the baseline, that's why we start off at the basic level and intermediate and have these different levels going up, that our students can understand the building information modeling or BIM systems as things happen and they grow into this whole process, because it's not a switch you can just switch on and then any office would know that. It takes time to get your office into that ecosystem. But so then at least we have our students going out into that, but that's the building block of this whole thing. And the project was that's why it was great that it was mentioned that we could use any application, because that opens up all BIM applications. And I specifically got this one, the Autodesk Tandem one, because I've got a passion for, there's a big gap of handing over the building. Everybody is fighting to build it, but then at the end of the day, there's a lot of maintenance and all of those things and systems and all of that that I'm sure you're going to also talk about later. But that forms then the basic building blocks. And Autodesk Tandem is built on that DNA where it leverages the BIM information, but then it creates opportunity to create a digital twin of that building that's as-built building plan, and that can be used and reused over time. And that's great. That's a wonderful application. I really take my hat off for Autodesk for going that route. I hope it will continue with that route, and also add the ticket system, like they said they're going to into the Tandem system, that you can do maintenance directly and link it back all the way back into your Revit file, which is great for when stuff needs to be technical drawings, or stuff needs to be designed again, and then take it back all the way to the maintenance people that normally sits in an Excel spreadsheet or something like that. So, and they don't have the education of or knowledge of how Revit and ArchiCAD works, which takes a long time to understand. And then the last part, just on the cloud technologies from Autodesk. I must say at the Autodesk University 2021, the general session keynote by the president CEO, Andrew Agnost, I forgot his surname right. He mentioned as well that the cloud technologies are going to converge into a sort of a more better pool, because currently there's a cloud technology for this, and there's a cloud technology for that BIM application that you guys also ran. And, there's no interlinking between all of the 20 others that they have. So he's busy also with that. So that's going to be interesting times, and maybe something as well for your endeavors with the city.
Oh, thank you. That's very helpful information. We're looking forward to learn more. Idris, I'm happy to see you. I want to ask congratulations to your team as well. And I want to ask you a question, Idris. Are you ready for one? I just want to check your audio. Good morning.
Good morning, madam. I'm ready to go on.
Congratulations. I'm so happy to have you here. I want to hear from you, Idris. What was the most exciting part of this competition? What interested you? What did you learn? Share us some of your experiences.
The most interesting part of this work was the collaboration among each other's team members, because it was our first time to work on this kind of project, and it was we didn't know how to manage multiple files using Revit, linking strategy, copy monitor. We learned it by doing this student competition. It was the main interesting thing. Another thing was the electrical and plumbing model. We haven't yet modeled it, but for this competition we have to learn it. And another aspect was the BIM convention, the BIM execution plan, because when we try to know more about building model, build a building with using BIM, they thought that we have to have a BIM execution plan where we have to define the codification, the linking strategy, the level of development and level of detail, the matrix responsibility, such kind of things. It was very excited. It was very excited. Thank you again for offering us these opportunities.
Idris, it sounded like there was a lot of new learning for you. And that's a good thing, right? And what would you think we should take? Where can we take this learning? How can we take this to the future? What would you like others to learn? What can you tell us to think about if we say BIM in Africa? What would you recommend we take forward?
I think to increase the level of awareness on BIM, on this culture, I think for this kind of competition, we have to get in touch with many administrations, school staff administration, so that they are well placed to talk about it to the student, because most of my classmates doesn't know the information. It's very difficult even here, because we are French. Most of the time we are French speaking, and the thing is in English. You can get in touch with the administration. They can very well popularize the information to students. Then we can have many groups. Then they can learn, and it can create awareness to students. Another aspect for me is that we were limited to use our knowledge learned at school in this competition, because we have to reproduce something which exists, and we have a difficulty to record some data. For example, for the electrical part, it was difficult we just see the lighting. We don't know how currents are passing through, even for a plumbing system. Structural part was not very interesting, because we didn't ask, the question was not asked for us to design the building and, for example, produce deliverables such as structural detailings. But it was done. If for the future you can bring us to use our knowledge learned at school and this culture BIM to federate the models by starting by the schematic design with architecture of our school, then structural design, MEP, then finish with construction planning, for example, with Nevis work, putting inside project management schedule using MEP on Primavera. It will be very good for us. And another thing that was struggle us was the number of people. I think if you increase to 5 students and 1 mentor, maybe good, because there was many things, because it was so experienced, we didn't know much about BIM. We have to find some knowledge, read some articles. It was difficult. If you were 5 students, I think it will be good, and it will be much more impact the other students at school.
Thank you.
I want to share.
That's very helpful for us to learn about, because we are learning through this competition how diverse the understanding of BIM is across the continent. And thank you for your work, because now we can work as a community to improve that. Idris, again, to the 2 teams, very congratulations. We're so proud of you participating, and we're so proud of you taking this scary leap forward. And as we are wrapping up this first half an hour, I'd like to go back to the tutor, Leon Pinar. And from a tutor's perspective, what did you exceed in the learning for the students as they went through figuring out this brief? What was difficult for them to collaborate on? How can we start thinking about multidisciplinary teams in the future? What would you think about that as we go into the future of BIM in Africa?
Please, man, I didn't very well get the question, the main question. Please, can you?
Sure, Idris. I'm actually addressing it to Mr. Pinar. So you're off the hook.
Okay, thank you.
So you're fine. So Mr. Pinar, what would you say? How can we tackle the future of multidisciplinary and BIM in Africa? What do you think about that?
Well, I can let me just see. I'm muted. That I think the project as well can sit well with the multidisciplinary departments in engineering, for that matter, to get a whole team on board. Nearly similar to MIT's workshops that they have, where they invite 25 students across the whole of the university to participate in a project, building something and doing something like that. So yeah, that is a good strategy, is just to get everybody on board. Is a lot of ramping up, but we are seeing this happening with other projects that we are running in our school currently, with a concrete block project in 4th year, where we are the lecturer Peter Kravenstein is busy liaising with the civil engineers to do the mixing of the concrete and all of those things. He's got more detail on that, but that interaction between departments are happening, and obviously we've now merged with industrial design, so that's a great opportunity there for our making side, where we have our design, model and make philosophy in our school. So at the end of the day, that is also, I think, one of the issues, is to actually start making things and items, and the art of making is also need to be introduced.
And as an educator looking to the future, I'm going to finish up with this question, and then we can move to our judges so they can give us their insight. A lot of our effort in using BIM and digital technology is to improve something, right? Either it's through the delivery of work or the performance of a building. And Mr. Pinar, like, if we consider what the purpose of BIM and the environment that we serve, how do you see the environments of our buildings and its environments tying into this BIM ecosystem? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I haven't thought too much about that yet, but I think that's also part of your research currently. And I think it all boils down to the Internet of Things, that network, getting it going, and also gearing up the students and the industry to go that route, to get more sensors, data in, because if you have the data that you can work with, you can take that through to algorithms, and then also use that for existing buildings to see where energy can be saved, or be more sustainable in the long run. And this is also what we are exploring in our 4th year as sort of the new way forward. And I can see that also happening worldwide. So I think that would maybe be the trajectory, and then that links the data to the BIM information. The BIM information then becomes the digital twin, etc., and so on. So it's like a whole sort of chain of events that link the whole lot together.
Well, thank you. I'm going to start wrapping up the first half of our discussion today. And congratulations again, teams. I hope to see you in the future again. We would love more participation. We are inviting learning at all levels. Thank you for your hard work, and thank you to your teachers for taking on this challenge and delivering such interesting products to us. So with that, you're welcome. And with that, I'm going to hand over to our other panelists to introduce your judges to you. And then we're going to have a discussion about what we've experienced from a judging perspective and what we have learned through this experience. So over to you. While we're waiting for them, I'm going to ask Renee. Renee, you're a 3rd year. Oh, here she is. Yes. There we go. She will take over. Thank you.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you so much. Thank you. That was an amazing session with the students. Well done, Dr. Davey. Congratulations once again, Idris and Renee and your lecturer, Mr. Leon. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay. Good afternoon once again to our audience and everybody listening in. So we'll quickly move on to the next session of our panel discussion, and we would hear in this session from the judges. From the few minutes of discussion with the students, you can see it was quite an interesting time, quite enlightening and educating for the participants. And it wasn't quite easy for our judges, I'm sure, to go through such amazing projects that were submitted. And so we're going to hear from them and glean from their experiences and other things they had going on for them during the judging. And we would learn from these outcomes with regards to how we're going to make our buildings smart city ready. Like we know, we're going to learn in this discussion what we'll do with regards to existing buildings, or what we can do with regards to existing buildings in order to make it smart city ready in the year 2030. And this particular session, like already explained further, deals with the student competition. So with me on this discussion panel, we have Andrew Mason, Dr. Davey Hassel. We also have Bern and Nick Turner. And I'll hand over quickly to them to introduce themselves. Andrew Mason, can we hear from you? A quick introduction, please.
Hi, everybody. Thanks very much. My name is Andrew Mason. I'm residing in South Africa currently, and I am dealing with the operational side of buildings as a facilities management consultant.
Well, thank you, Andrew. Glad to have you on the panel with us. Nick.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nick Turner. I'm a contractor based in Johannesburg, and it's been an exciting journey and a privilege to be part of this. And I really look forward to further initiatives like this. I feel a bit out of my depth because contractors don't normally feature in this world in the design phases. And then eventually we have to hand over to somebody like Andrew, and hopefully it will be a digital transformation, a digital handover, which is not yet there. Andrew can share on those kind of things. And really, it's exciting to see, the level of enthusiasm and the input from the students and what they've managed to achieve with limited resources available to themselves, which we will be discussing a bit further. Thank you.
Great to have you join us, Nick. Glad to have you on the panel. Bern, can we hear from you? Can you please quickly introduce yourself to our listeners?
Okay, very quick. 10 seconds. I'm Bernd Ullerman from the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. I won't speak that fast. It's okay. And I work primarily in regional industrial development. And I'm involved a lot in future planning and smart cities and eco-industrial parks and stuff like that. So this whole conversation is very relevant to me. I'm all very excited to be here today. Thank you.
All right, great to have you, Bern. And last but not the least on our list of panelists, Dr. Davey. Can you please introduce yourself again?
Sure. I'm interested. My name is Dr. Clay Davey. I'm at the University of Pretoria, and I'm in transdisciplinary built environment and innovation spaces, and specifically technology, innovation, and smart cities. So I'm very keen to drive the education of this topic at all levels, and very proud of our student teams who took on these challenges.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Khaled. All right. And so my name is Uboho Akpan. I'm the communications executive at BIM Africa and a customer success specialist at Costec Computers Limited. And I'll be the moderator for this panel. I was part of the planning committee towards the students' competition, and it was quite exciting. Interacting with the students and working through with them through the administrative part of it. And so without further ado, just move on with the actual discussion. And so we've heard from the students, and now we want to hear from our from our judges, who are also our panelists, their general experiences with judging the students' competition. And so I'll start again with Nick. Nick, can you share with us your general experience with judging this competition? How was it for you? Are there insights and learnings you would love to share with us?
Definitely. I think it was a wonderful experience, and I'm grateful to be considered to be part of this. What really struck me, obviously, there was a architectural flair to this competition. And I personally, what I would like to see, and I think Idris may have touched on it as well, is to see a more multidisciplinary approach to the competition that will involve a lot more stakeholders, so that one can really put your skills to the test. You know, like I mentioned, you know, generally contractors don't get involved that early on in a project, and I would like to see that change in the industry, where we can have a more integrated project delivery, which can be far more beneficial for the whole value chain and the whole industry, the built environment, where we, you know, working towards smart cities. It means we need smart people. It boils down to education and smart people working together. And I think the students, both, Renee also alluded to that, where they have challenges in communication, coordinating. So what really struck me with, you know, like I mentioned in the introduction, was the level of detail that the guys went to, or the teams went to, and what they've put into their model, particularly Idris and them with they looked at the MEP side. They looked at cost classifications, and you know, BIM it's not all about the 3D model. It is the data that goes into that, and the utilization and the sharing of the data. So the sooner we can get that information shared throughout the whole value chain, the better. So what they've put into that, taking into account their curriculum and what they've been taught to date, they had to go and think out of the box. They had to go and do their own research. They had to go and link stuff from outside and bring it in to be more collaborative. And that's, I saw that coming through. You know, because there were so many teams, you could see the ones that had performed. It has gone a little bit extra, bit further. And, you know, we're speaking about what can the next competition be. It's clear that we're going to have to look at the multidisciplinary, but we need to be aware of maybe the level of the education. We can't expect the first year student to perform a whole digital collaborative model that gives us a digital twin at the end, if they haven't experienced all of that. So I think one can bring in levels of education, a level of, to the point where we can get a fully integrated, looking at the whole value chain. Also looking at, are we looking at as-built information or new construction, all those kind of things. And then, yeah, the main aspect is to be able to work together and cross-discipline. So bringing, like Idris said, bring in the MEP side, bring in the structural, and putting your skills to the test. You know, if it's an as-built building, yes, you're not really going to design it structurally unless you're going to add to it. What more can you add to it? I'm looking forward to education and students taking us to a new level. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Truly, the multidisciplinary aspect of the competition was quite inspiring. So let's hear from Bernd. How was it for you?
Extremely boring. No, I'm joking, of course. No. Look, absolutely fabulous. I think Nick has already touched on quite a number of the key issues. I think what is really standing out for me is the level of interest, despite students actually not knowing about BIM. I find that very encouraging. Okay. You probably, I mean, you will know this, but everybody that's here won't know it, you know. So I'm all about passion and excitement. Okay. So if you're passionate about what you're doing, you are going to make a difference. It doesn't matter what you're tackling, okay? And I can see that passion coming out through some of the work, well, most of the work that the students did, okay? I think that's the first one. I think the second thing really that I picked up was learning of other things. Nick alluded to that. This has also been mentioned already. But I think this is important to understand education. You know, education never is just about one area. You know, you learn you know, a particular, you know, subject matter, but there are always interconnectivities to other areas, okay? And I think students are realizing that when they get involved with BIM, you know, suddenly they have to, you know, brush up on their software skills, you know, brush up on their 3D modeling, you know, or whatever it is, understand other aspects of the space that they are in, okay? And you don't necessarily learn that in the classroom. And quite frankly, if I can just end that point with that issue, is very often in industry, it is not the things that you've learned that cause you to make a difference. It's the things that you didn't learn that you have to learn yourself, okay, that you pick up, which builds your experience, all right? And that's very important to understand, okay, because having a degree, you know, as some kind of qualification only gives you the first step. And young people have to understand that, okay? It's not about that first step. That's just the first step, okay? There's a step after that, and another, and another, and another, and so you go on, okay? Maybe just last one I want to share, and it's something that we can look at for next year. I did pick up that access and bandwidth, you know, information technology issues are a bit of a challenge, okay? And it would be great if we can find a way of getting around that. But it also tells me that there's a lot more to do in Africa, especially to enable young people, especially, you know, to really get online, you know, to interact, to engage, to learn more. You know, a lot of these things, you know, we take for granted, you know, because, I mean, I'm sitting in the home. I did a lot of effort trying to get fiber in because of COVID. You know, I'm all kitted out. You know, I've got a webcam, I've got a nice computer, you know, all this stuff is easy, okay, because it's accessible. But for someone that sits in a country where bandwidth is costing a lot of money, it's not fast, you know, the software is not available. You know, how do you enable young people to actually participate in a competition when those are the conditions? Let me stop there. Thank you.
Yes, that's quite insightful. Like you said, there's so much for us to do in Africa, and that's why our tagline is a BIM for BIMHarambee is a BIM virtual event for Africa by Africa. So that was quite insightful. Thank you so much, Dr. Khaled. Can we hear from you? How was the experience? What would you love to share with us with regards to experience judging it?
Yeah, happy to. Sharing a lot of the sentiments of my colleagues, and what's interesting is the judging panel is from pretty much the entire value chain of making buildings. We have from the government side all to the contractor side and everything in between. And what was interesting is that we all are looking at the work with those lenses and looking for value through those lenses. And the competition is starting to teach us as industry practitioners that we might not be focused enough on sharing that value in our education when we teach built environment education. And I think the competition is showing us that there's a great opportunity for us to simulate the work experience earlier than just showing up in an office and then suddenly have to learn how to collaborate. And that is the thing I think we can benefit the most from, because most of our students or young professionals really only learn how to collaborate once they're in the real project setting. And at that moment, it's almost, you know, too late. We want to start that learning process much earlier. And this competition is maybe a way for us to encourage that kind of behavior and encourage that kind of readiness for the firm. Because at the end of the day, when you're working on project teams, and BIM is a multi-firm team, right? You're never working in a BIM project just for your firm. You're working across many teams and many firms on one project. It's very different to what our education is. Our education is usually saying in a silo of design or in a silo of production. And I think this is the most potential we have experienced here. And a lot of our students are dominantly coming from architecture, which is telling us that there's a lot of focus on geometric BIM, like making the shape of the thing. And at the end of the day, what we really want is a building that is intelligent through BIM. And it includes many other stakeholders. So I think that as we go forward, we're going to look for those opportunities to bring in collaboration super early and try and articulate those values from the contractor's perspective, from the government's perspective, from an asset owner's perspective, and a facilities manager especially. So I'd love to hear Mr. Mason's opinion on what he also had on this journey.
Thanks, Khaled. Yeah, I find it very interesting. When I was at the same time in my life as these students, I was drawing on a drawing board with rotoring pens, and so I've seen the whole the whole gamut, I think, of technology from that stage right up to CAD and now into BIM. And I would suggest that my challenge to these guys and girls is to you'll learn it in leadership. Challenge the process. Don't accept the process that's gone before and then try and retrofit the technology into it. The technology allows you to do things differently. And the one thing that's really stuck in my mind here is, yes, the multidisciplinary approach is the way to go. You know, you are what is it? Mike Rohn said, you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And this technology allows you to collaborate more so than the technologies that I was brought up with. And I've done everything from the beginning of the building supply chain to the end of the building supply chain to the bit in the middle. So I've seen it across the whole spectrum. And what I would suggest to these guys is they learn their disciplines, sure, but walk a mile in the other man's shoes or the other girl's shoes and understand what the structural engineer has to go through, what the civil engineer has to go through. A multidisciplinary approach is definitely the way to go, because you are going into an environment which is a totally unique environment. You cannot compare it to anything else. You know, construction is a totally unique production environment. It's fraught with a huge lack of cooperation amongst the teams. I hope I'm not bursting your bubble, but you know, there are silos, there are egos, there's poor information, and maybe that's not so unique. There are other industries out there, but you know, where it is unique is it takes many years to make a single unit of production that costs, unfortunately, many more times to operate over the next 25 to 30 years than it does to construct, and that's often forgotten about. You know, and it's done in the main without any reference or consultation with those people who are going to be responsible for using the building, for living in the building, for operating that building. And so what you're foisting on the operator is essentially an unseen and unproven prototype. The exciting thing for me around BIM and digital twins taken to the next level is that you can model that. You can model that before anybody even puts a spade in the ground, to a much greater degree that you had now. So understanding what is it you're trying to achieve at the end of the day? What is that building going to be like in 40 years time, 50 years time? And I've worked on buildings that are over 600 years old, 600 years old. Nobody, when they designed that building, thought that building was going to last for 600 years. So you don't know what legacy you're leaving behind. Just make sure you keep the operator in mind and the guy that's going to maintain that. I was very pleased to hear that Renee mentioned right in his early thing that about maintenance scenarios. I'm very pleased to hear an architect thinking about that way. That is a breath of fresh air to me. Thank you. Obuho, back to you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so I would love to know, Bern, considering the students' technology, their approach, and what you could glean from what they did in the competition, is their work feasible in reality?
Well, I think what a lot of students did demonstrated the limited understanding of BIM, I think. Okay, I think that's important to understand. when you say feasible, I think one needs to take it within the bigger context. Okay, so what they are doing is actually almost, now I'm going to quote myself, the first step, okay, like I said earlier about your qualification, okay, it's the first step in management, and Andrew can talk a lot more about this than I can, okay, but it's a first step in managing the assets, for example, that an organization or company or government has, okay, great. That's really important. Okay, so I think from a feasibility perspective, you've got to have a realistic environment. Okay, and coming back to what Andrew said now, you know, before this thing is built, you know, you want people to understand what it is that they're looking at. How do you involve stakeholders that are not used to visualizing what is going to be built? Okay, so again, you know, it's the first step in that process. All right, so yeah, it's definitely feasible. In terms of usability, not so much, okay? And that's okay, all right? Because how do you learn, you know, if you don't try and do something and then you realize, oh my goodness, okay, what about maintenance, okay? What about reporting on regulatory compliance, okay? What about reporting, and this is a key thing in smart cities and eco-industrial development, what about reporting on your materials? So electricity usage, water usage, your use of materials in your building, okay? How do you manage that, okay? How do you understand that, okay? It's all those kinds of things. So I can go on, but that's probably the first things that I would highlight. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So Nick, would you agree or disagree with Bernd, or you have something more to add with regards to the feasibility of the students' work in reality?
In terms of reality, I think we who are in the industry, we have similar issues or challenges ourselves to be able to collaborate efficiently. So yes, they're going to have the same challenges as we may face, but they've got the opportunity to change that mindset at a very grassroots level so that we can change the industry. And they must realize it's more than just the 3D model that they're constructing. It's not just that building. There's a much wider ecosystem. And BIM and GIS are rapidly moving into an environment that makes that possible for all of us to understand it at a much deeper and fundamental level. But the key is to be able to work together, and also the interoperability, and a few of them have actually touched on that. You know, moving just from an ArchiCAD environment to a Revit environment, or Autodesk environment, and there's many other environments. So I would like to obviously see a bit more in terms of open BIM, so that more stakeholders can collaborate. And IFC is by far, you know, the vehicle to bring that about. Because we as contractors often, you know, everything is done digitally and then dumbed down to a 2D environment. And then with that 2D environment, you must commit to a price and the time, a program. And that's where our project could fundamentally be changed if it's done collaboratively early enough so that we can have it within budget, on time. And as we construct, we actually not just creating the physical structure or building, but in the process we're building the digital model or improving the as-built digital model, because you have one in the beginning, but the as-built information that can go on there, and in terms of managing the project, its resources, avoiding clashes, you know, understanding if there's an issue, how to address it to avoid unnecessary cost overruns. It will give the owner, the developer, far more insight in the project. It gives the contractors the ability to procure the correct material at the right time. So, and then at the end, obviously, to have your digital model complete, not at completion of the contract, not 5 years down the track where somebody has spent time creating an as-built model. And then all that information can be handed over to the facilities management and the operators of the buildings and the facilities. It really is about sustainability, and we're going to need to focus on this more and more. You know, we're going to be running out of materials. We're going to need new construction materials. So the spectrum is so wide for us, and the opportunities, it's incredible. If we work together, BIM is not software. It's all about people, process, and then technology, which is the vehicle to make this happen.
That's so helpful, Nick. I want to add to your comment. When I started in the BIM environment, I started as a technical person, right? I learned how to make a technical model. I learned how to deliver a deadline or deliver on milestones. But as I went a bit further in my built environment career, you start learning that the whole reason we build buildings is to provide a service to society, whether it's a hospital, a road, a bridge. There's no reason to be in the built environment unless you're servicing a human being at the other end. And most of that value is about the service to society through buildings. And the thing that BIM has taught me over my career so far, we'll see, I'm very keen to see what the future holds, but is that that we can eliminate so much waste on work, knowledge waste, process waste, physical waste, production waste by working together. And at the very minimum, we can, BIM is promising us that kind of value. And when we are thinking of using the BIM environment as a culture of work, not just a product of work, things change, because then I start caring about the quality of the handover as a service to the next person in the chain. At the end of the day, the design practice or the design portion of assets is a fraction of the costs and implications of what buildings mean to society. Buildings and cities occupy 3% of the Earth's surface, and buildings and cities are responsible for 75% of the problems. And the only reason we create buildings and cities is to service human issues. So if you take a step back and you say, why do we BIM at all? And you start seeing that it's a culture of improving societal stuff, then we're starting to enter an environment where BIM matters beyond the technical, because a technical BIM, if it's so technical and the user, the facilities manager, the contractor, the bricklayer cannot access that information, why bother? So I think the future of BIM is really going to be driving us to what is the value that we as a community are seeking from these models, as opposed to just having technical expertise. It's not about that. It's a culture of working. Uboho, over to you. As Uboho is getting online, I think she has some connectivity issues. Andrew, would you like to expand on that comment? I saw you nodding.
Yeah, no, Khaled, you know me so well. You teed me up beautifully. No, I mean, just a couple of stats. I mean, we produce, buildings produce 40% of the world's carbon. I mean, there is, if you want to change the world, do that. You've saved lives. You will save lives. You will save communities. As I said earlier on, I've worked on buildings that some of them were 600 years old. But if I take a typical building that I worked on in London, a 200-year-old building, that building's been through a life cycle that says it started as a house, it became a block of flats, it became an office, and it's back to being a flat or a house again. Largely that building hasn't changed. The shell hasn't changed that much. But the purpose of the building and the lives it influences and the problems as it solves in its social surroundings, not only for the occupants, but how that building creates a livelihood for its community around it or is part of that community, is something that we really, really need to understand. The social value of construction in both its construction and its management is absolutely massive. Churchill once said, I mean, those who are youngsters on the whoever Winston Churchill was, he was quite famous. Go look him up, go Google him. He said, people shape buildings, but thereafter they shape us. Understand the impact that you're having on society. And as social architects, as social engineers, not just bricks and mortar and glass and steel, Okay, understand that that building has an impact on so many people over a lifetime that will probably outlive your career. And then understand you can't do that on your own. You can't do that in isolation as silos. You need multidisciplinary teams to pull the expertise in to create that. And once you've made that statement, it will change. It will change and it will grow and it will evolve. So nothing ever stays still. You know, Heraclitus said, when you step into the no man ever steps into the same river twice. You know, because the next time you step in, that river has changed and you've changed, and that's what the whole built environment is about. And I know I'm going to leave it on that philosophical note.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you so much. Okay, just to remind our audience that we are very open to your questions. In case you have anything to ask our panel, we would gladly take that up and discuss it too. And so, just quickly, Dr. Davey, sorry, I'm coming back to you again. I would love to know, do you think this multidisciplinary approach can, multidisciplinary technological whole thing about BIM can change our approach to education? Because from the learnings and from what we've seen so far, this has been one of the, should I say, bright points of the competition from the students and from what the judges have said. So do you think that we should change the way we approach education and focus on the multidisciplinary aspect of projects, and with the way BIM is all about collaboration and all?
Yes, so I think I'm going to use this statement again. BIM is a culture of working. It's a culture. It's a way of working that has fundamental different behaviors in it. And a lot of our education hasn't yet recognized it as a culture. They've recognized it as a technology, and they've recognized it as a skill set at minimum. And what's really missing is that culture of working, which is fundamentally different to the 20th century and everything that we've had before. And in the 20th century culture of buildings and making buildings that matter and making cities that matter, we've had a traditional way of working of handing things over and walking away. But in the 21st century, we don't have that, we don't have the time, and we don't have the, we can't afford to keep the old culture alive. And the BIM environment and the BIM culture is about dynamic collaboration and working on things that matter through technology. So yes, I do think there's a massive gap in the built environment education for understanding that we are entering a 21st century culture of built environment practitioners, and that we have to leave behind the idea of retrospective working. In other words, if you are reporting on something, you're doing it wrong. It has to be automatic. A report is 100% waste, 100%. Human waste, knowledge waste, everything. And that kind of eliminating waste in our practices as built environment practitioners is incredibly important. And when we're shifting through BIM, BIM allows us to expose these weaknesses in our skill sets across the board. If you're a mason or a project manager or an architect or an asset owner, BIM exposes to us what our problems are when we try to collaborate. And our education needs to catch up. It needs to catch up that you cannot enter the workforce in the 21st century if you don't have digital intelligence. There's no job for you if you don't have digital intelligence. If you don't have digital skills, there is no future. And I hope that through these kinds of competitions, we are going to establish that digital skills is as fundamental a practice as is mathematics, reading, writing, and everything else. So I hope that this experience teaches our environment across the board how important it is to anchor that really early on, so it doesn't come as an extra learning curve once you get onto the job, because that's too late. We don't have time for learning late. We need to learn now, And we need to change our sustainable goals today, achieve those goals today. We can't wait 10 years for every practitioner to catch up in digital competency. It's just absurd, because in 2050, we need to have made a change already. We are the number one responsible sector for why we are in this mess. And we have the tools at hand. We already have all the tools. We know exactly what to do, and we have all the tools to do it. We need young generational leaders to do it. And that's what I think BIM is in Africa specifically is promising us. By the year 2100, 40% of the planet will be African. And 90% of urbanization will be in Africa. The building floor space that is coming towards us, I don't know if we're ready yet, but I think we can be to service on that demand. And a practitioner, whether you're a contractor or an asset owner, doesn't matter. If you can see that future that way, and you take technology with you as a culture of working and producing cities that matter, I think that's a bright future to be involved in.
I'd like to add what Khaled is saying. I think, you know, if we just look at this BIMHarambee and we look at BIM Community Africa as well as BIM Africa, and, you know, that collaboration and this competition has shown us, you know, the whole continent. We are at the edge of really being able to change our built environment. And I think that is a vision we need to really give our young people, because they have that ability to do that across the continent. Yes, we've got challenges. And we can't just talk about smart cities just being in the technical realm. It really is a living, we want to see our built environment improved. We want functioning facilities, electricity, water. And if something is broken now, let's fix it. Get that vision to change that environment, to make it positive. We know there's a lot of negativity with COVID, but it's given us the opportunity to collaborate on this kind of platform, which traditionally we wouldn't. You know, conferences and expos and those kind of things, you physically went to it. Now we've got the ability through technology to expand it, and we can really open up our vision and that, well, collaboration, I suppose.
So I'm going to ask Andrew. He's had a lot of experience in other BIM markets, and he's got a lot of experience in seeing the transformation in other sectors like the UK. What do you see when you look at that history from your experience in the UK and you consider this, the current state of Africa and the future that we are hoping to see? What do you think about the built environment as it is now and how it could be in Africa?
I think, yeah, I mean, I'm very interested in the stats that you produced just now. And that actually is a scary thought if you consider where we are now. And you either got to get on that train, you got to grab that tiger by the tail, whether we want to or not, if we want to be successful. One of the things, I mean, coming out of the UK as a built environment specialist, one of the first things that I noticed here was how quickly we actually can construct in this. Now we tend to do it by labor intensive. We tend to throw much more labor at it, but we can actually, from inception to completion. One of the big projects I worked on was a fast track. We were literally we were drawing and building, literally delivering drawings and building that week. Now, it was interesting for me that the drawings are delivered and they're already out of date by the time they're delivered. They're already out of date. I mean, I think what we could have achieved in 18 months on that project to build it from scratch, what we could have achieved if we'd had a BIM capability, is just phenomenal. It's phenomenal. It is exponentially better. It's not just a new technology and a new culture. It is actually exponential in terms of cost. I mean, one of the things I wanted to mention when you handed over to me previously, but I forgot to mention it, is that there was a report out. I'm actually going on to another webinar this afternoon about COBIE. I mean, in terms of handing over to COBIE standards, that's COBIE, if anybody wants to go to look it up. And it's about the digital transformation. You know, in the days when I took over buildings, you literally had a room full of lever arch files, and that was it. That was and the contractor, sorry Nick, threw you the key and ran away from the building. Didn't walk away, he ran away from the building, never to be heard of again. And that was the reality. It's better than that now, but it still needs to be digitized. There was a report out of the Institute of Workplace and Facilities Management in the UK this week that up to 80% of management costs in the first 5 years of a building's life is just searching for information because it's not digitized. So understanding that in of itself is a massive undertaking, and it's relatively simple to do if you've got the information to start with. So I honestly think, the one thing we've done very well in Africa is we are incredibly creative. All you have to do is look at the robots, what guys are doing, what girls are doing to earn a living, to struggle through the day. We are incredibly creative. And maybe that's come out of our past where, the separation of apartheid, you didn't have an awful lot of resources. So you did what was best. And I think Africa we're learning from our African brothers over up north. We're on the bottom end of this continent, but it's a massively creative environment, and that has so many opportunities. But what we do have, and I think COVID has accelerated this, we have this ability to be able to stand on the shoulders of others now and not make the same mistakes that they made. Really, that gives us a quantum leap advantage over our Asian, our Far Eastern Asian cousins, our Middle Eastern cousins, and our Eurocentric and Americentric cousins. It really does. If we can really come together as a community, understand what it is we need to do, agree upon it, and then move forward. That's my perception.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you so much. So, Bern, I think this can serve as a yes, no question, but I think I would want to hear something. Can you apply any of these learnings in your business?
It's definitely not a yes, no question. I can tell you that. Okay, because it depends on where you are at, what your level of decision making and understanding is, and what your experience is, etc. Yeah, absolutely. To latch onto what we've already said. Okay, so some of you have heard of something called the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Okay, 4IR in short. But 4IR talks about a next generation of digital technologies and skills that are required, right? And to steal a bit of terminology from what Khaled said earlier, it's absurd to think that we cannot and don't spend enough time to actually help young people to actually embrace that revolution. Okay, just quite simply because, and again to latch on to what Andrew said, we either take this tiger by the tail, or this tiger is going to take us by the head, never mind the tail. Okay, because I tell you, the tiger is the biggest cat that lives. Okay, if that thing gets you, it's not going to grab you by a tail. First of all, you don't have one. Secondly, it goes right for the head. Okay, so honestly, for me, it's a no-brainer. Okay, to apply this in our business has a huge range of possibilities. Okay, so 4IR, let me just use a simple example. Okay, so I work in the industrial development space, and we work a lot with people who have factories and large manufacturing plants and things like that. All of that needs to be digitized. Well, digitalized, that's the right word, not digitized. Digitized is a different process. Okay, so that latches on to the digitization of a building or digitalization of a building. Okay, so BIM is a core component of how you manage a manufacturing space. You cannot manage it if you don't have the building in there, as well, right? So absolutely, I think a lot of the people that I work with in the industry, I'm trying to grow this awareness, okay? That is the direction we're going to. Why? Because exactly to the point that I think Khaled made that mainly earlier on is, it's a waste of time to collect information and to generate reports. Honestly, okay? And now I'm sitting in government. I'm just going to use one government example, okay? We have quarterly reports that need to be in. I cannot tell you, in the month of September and October, most government officials waste their time writing the same report 10 times for different people. I mean, for heaven's sakes, really? Are we really that stupid that we don't understand how important people's time is, okay? The information is available. Okay, so yes, I think this is how we can apply it. But I think I want to end off with one thing I think that's critical in the adoption, and that is innovation. Okay, the point has already been made. Africa is very innovative, absolutely. Okay, but we need to think outside of the box. We've got to push that boundary, and the more you engage with people from different disciplines, the more you have this collaboration, the more you have this engagement from the beginning to the end of the building cycle, the more opportunities you have for people to actually think outside of the box, to actually ask questions about, well, are you sure we're actually doing the right thing here? Should we not be doing A, B, and C? Okay. Should we not rather focus on X, Y, and Z? Okay. Rather than just assuming that somebody, and well, usually somebody does the work anyway, okay? But just assuming, that work is in place. We've got to engage, and that engagement process is innovative, okay? And it's supposed to bring out that innovation. Anyway, let me stop there. Thanks.
I'd like to add what Bernd's saying, in terms of reports and handing over at the end of a project, etc. We're focusing on smart cities, and it's all about sustainability. And yes, we need to look at things, how we can do it better for the environment, for people, for everything. And one of the things that BIM is enabling is not just to be able to write reports, but to have dynamic reporting on the go, on the fly, so that you know where you're standing on your project. But it needs to go further than this. So we're talking, smart city planning starts at the planning departments, and to bring that into unity. The president talking about 4IR and that he can't operate from his level down onto a building or project level. It needs to be structured in such a way so that it can be effective at every level of society or the project or discipline. And the key here is we're talking about education and the skills, and we're going to need digital skills. How are we going to be constructing things? And Andrew, you also mentioned we throw labor at it. We can no longer have labor-intensive projects. We're going to start looking at automation and robots and things coming into construction. Because you also mentioned it, we're in an exponential age where we're going to need to house people, give them services, electricity, all those kind of things, and it needs to work. And if there's a breakdown in the system somewhere, we would need to be able to act very quickly or understand. Bernd, in our previous discussions, you meant gaming. I remember my kids playing a game called SimCity. That was brilliant. They had a dashboard. You go and build a city. You implement the services. If you fail to do this, the city burns down. You look at the education, you look at the whole societal thing, and it was brilliant. And I think that's where it's far greater than what we can conceive. And I think young people need to understand that and realize that they are that change and can be that change right now for the built environment.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you. All right, so so far we do not have any questions from the audience. So I think at this point we'll be winding down. It has been a very wonderful 1 hour with each and every one of our judges. And of course, so I would just want to hear something, just a remark from Bernd as we wind down. So just take Dr. Davey, Andrew, Bernd, and Nick. They have just leave us with some words to comfort our hearts as we go out into the world.
Okay, I'll go quickly. We live in a time where a lot of people get very depressed and sad and worried about the future. Okay, dwindling resources, climate change, all these things. People are really stressed about this, and a lot of young people have huge concerns about that. Okay, rightly so. Because if we don't do anything, the result will be absolute anarchy and chaos and, death and mayhem and, whatever you want to make of it, okay? The key thing I want to leave with everyone is every single person can make a difference. Every single one. Whether you are the president of the country, whether you are cleaner in a bathroom in a hotel, you can make a difference. The question is, do you realize that you can? Number one. Number two, do you have a vision and an understanding of your identity and where you fit in? Because that is important, especially for young people, is to understand that the future is dependent on what you do. Okay, and now I'm not saying that God doesn't have a hand in this. I'm a big Christian. Okay, so I believe God knows exactly what he does. Okay, so we can have a long conversation about that at some other point. Okay, but you've got to understand that if you choose to make a difference, you will. If you choose to run away and hide and give up, well, that's what's going to happen. Okay, so I'd like to encourage every single person here and everyone that will listen to this at some point is find the change that you can make and do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Truly, find the change that you can make and then do it. All right, Dr. Andrew.
I know I'm butting in and I'm probably going out of sequence, but I want to pick up on what Bert said, and I'm going to make it even simpler. You know, I'm not sure young people do know where they fit in. It's a big, hairy problem. And you know what it is, the elephant, how do you eat the elephant? One step at a time. I would go one step further. I think there are probably only half a dozen really big problems in the world. Only half a dozen. They are massive, massive problems. But just focus on what is the problem that you want to solve, okay? Fixate on that, and then there are a million ways that you can contribute to solve that problem. Focus on that, and you will find contentment, happiness, and fulfillment.
Thank you. Thank you. That was very encouraging. And so, Nick?
Yeah, while we're on the bandwidth of encouraging, I would really like to challenge everybody as well. Let's raise the standard of education. Let's raise the bar. We've got the skills in Africa, and it's really encouraging to see this cross-continent interaction. And I think we really, this competition has really shown us the capabilities of young people that, like you said, think out of the box. And we've got the ability to change our environment to be what we want it to be collectively. And yes, each one of us do make a difference. You might be one individual, but collectively as a community, we can achieve a lot. Let's put our minds and efforts together and let's achieve, bring about that BIM standards into Africa and see it roll out into our built environment. Change the situation. If you don't like it, what can we change? Starting where we effectively can make a change, whether it's in your family, your community, your company, your country, can be done. Very
Thanks so much, Nick. Thank you. Dr. Davey?
Yeah, I'm going to use my closing comment from a personal perspective. A lot of the built environment practitioners suffer burnout in the first 5 years and leave the industry. This is a massive problem to us, whether or not you are in innovation and BIM and tech. And lots of the reasons they say is because of overworking redundant things with no purpose. They're so overworked that they leave the industry. We're losing people in the built environment at rapid rates, and the built environment's the biggest thing we have to focus on. So what I've learned, I also experienced burnout in my early part of my career, and I wanted to change away from the built environment to other things because I didn't have, in the traditional way of delivering and designing work, was highly unsatisfying. And once we started thinking about I started thinking about the higher purpose of why build buildings at all, why build cities at all. And I started looking for alternative ways to deliver a higher pursuit. My personal career started changing. My personal interest started rekindling. My curiosity started coming back. My commitment to finding creative outputs returned. And then if you go into the built environment with that approach now, early, you're going to have a lot of fulfillment and contribution you can make. And using technology as a stepping stone to learn about it is a fantastic way to do that. So I want to encourage you that the built environment is losing people in droves, and it's the second most employable industry next to agriculture. So if you can come back and take a new mood with you into your firm, into your project, and bring others along and challenge the history and ask a new question and use technology that is already there, I think the impact that you can make on this continent will be tremendous. And we're hoping to see that happen. And we'd like to support, as a community of built environment practitioners, anyone who's going on that journey, and especially in our continent.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to our panelists who also served as our judges. And once again, congratulations to all the student teams that participated. You are all winners. You are all winners. And you've heard such glowing words that our judges have for you. You've heard how promising your future is. And when we talk about the way forward for the AEC industry, you are at the center of that future. You are our future architects, future facilities managers, future quantity surveyors. You are the future. And so as we bring this discussion to an end, we want you to go back with these words. The learnings and the insights that have been shared, they are going to be very useful to you and to every single person in the built environment, whether on the academic side or on the professional side. So once again, thank you, our panelists. Thank you, our audience. It's wonderful, even though we didn't get any questions from the audience, but we still really do, enjoy having you listen in to the discussion. Thank you so much. It's been a great time. And thank you for being part of BIMHarambee.Africa 2021. Hope to see you. Thank you, everybody.